Here we go. All right. All right, so finally, our final look at Hosea after 14 years of studying Hosea verse by verse. We're going to look at some combined verses from chapters 13 and 14. And so we might consider a little bit more historical look at this message, but we're also going to consider we've talked about the difference between what we're accustomed to seeing, which is fractal time, where one event leads to another event, which leads to another event, and this becomes history. Where in the Torah, it doesn't work that way. Remember, in the Torah, it does this. So it's helical time in the Torah. One event comes back, and we relive the same event over and over and over because we, for some reason, can't seem to get it right the first umpteen dozen times. So let's talk to our Elohim, and we'll take a look at Hosea. We're going to look at chapters 13 and 14. Thank you, Father, for this opportunity to study your word, to learn from you, to learn about ourselves. We ask that you will open our eyes, open our ears, and open our hearts so that we can see, hear, and understand what your word tells us, what your messengers had to tell us as well. And we thank you in the name of Yahushua. Amen. All right. So chapter 13, verse 1, that'd be kind of a drag going all the way back to chapter 1 and starting over, wouldn't it? Says, when Ephraim spoke, there was trembling. He exalted himself in Israel, but when he became guilty through Baal, he died. Okay. We can take this concept and go back to the split of the kingdoms. The rift of the kingdom of Israel between the southern kingdom of Judah and the northern kingdom of Israel came during a very delicate time. We read that Solomon dies, Rehoboam now has the throne, and the northern kingdom comes and says, dude, you need to ease up a little bit. Solomon was a slave driver. He was a tyrant. He didn't treat us right. You can make it right, and if you'll make it right, then we will serve you. So Rehoboam goes to his older advisors, and they said, yeah, that's a good idea. Lighten the load a little bit, treat them right, and they will be loyal to you. But then Rehoboam goes to his younger advisors, who said, oh, dude, no way. Because that's how young people do. And the result is, no, man, make it harder on them. Just let's get every drop of sweat that we can. So Rehoboam goes back and says, no, we're going to make it harder on you than it's ever been. So there's a split in the kingdom, or in the two kingdoms. Now, we also read in, I can't remember if it's Kings or Chronicles. Y'all have to read it. Where Yahuwah shows up and talks to Jeroboam and tells him, if you will turn towards me, if you will serve me, if you will shamar, if you will preserve, guard, protect, treasure my Torah, then I will basically keep my promise to Abraham through the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom. And Jeroboam kind of says, yeah, sure, man, that sounds great. But as soon as the rift comes, Jeroboam doesn't keep his deal. And what he actually does is he builds golden calves, puts one at Bethel, one at Dan, and instead of worshiping Yahuwah as Elohim, they begin to serve Baal. Which is kind of ironic in this loop that we lose the name of our Elohim and we start serving Baal. That means the Lord. So, anyway, the northern kingdom had endured, oh look, we get to read it again. Years of bitter labor under Solomon. After his death, they spoke up stating that they would be loyal to King Rehoboam if he would lighten their load. We said that. And began treating him fairly. We also found, we just talked about, that Jeroboam, the northern kingdom, had told him that he would fulfill his promise to Abraham through the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom if Jeroboam would follow the Torah. So Yahuwah was displeased with the arrogance of the southern kingdom, Judah had gotten to the point where they thought they were all that in a bag of potato chips. They built this magnificent temple. They had established all this worship in this great temple and everything, but they'd established it all on the backs of slaves without any regard for the people. So when Rehoboam refuses to pay any attention to the northern kingdom, there's a split. And this resulted in the death of Ephraim. It would result in the death of Ephraim because Ephraim, as the northern kingdom, would fall away from Yahuwah Elohim and begin to worship the Baals. And when they began to worship the Baals, well, that was the beginning of the end for the northern tribe. When we see Ephraim, we're usually talking about the northern kingdom. Okay? All right, verse 2. And now they sin more and more and have made them molten images of their silver according to their own understanding. Even idols, all of them the work of the craftsmen. Of them they say, they that sacrifice men kiss calves. Wow. That's another one of those don't boil a kid in its mother's milk thing, right? So, all right, so we have the idolatry of the house of Israel is increasing. So they construct deities of silver. Why silver? Why don't they make deities of gold? Why doesn't it tell us they make deities of gold? Silver is a representation within the Torah of redemption. So they're now trying to construct their own redemption in these deities. So they begin to trust in their own deliverance, and they reject the deliverance of Yahuwah. So we can equate this to our own tendency to put more stock in our own doctrine than in the instruction of the Torah itself. This is a big thing in Judaism, because a lot of people don't know the difference between what the Torah says and what the Talmud says. And people are going, and I get a lot of questions every week, well, what about this, or what about this? Should we be praying facing Jerusalem and this and that and the other? I said, that's Talmud. This is what the Torah says. So, and it's the same thing in Christianity. You put so much stock in Brit Hadashah, but you fail to pay any attention to what Yahusha says in the Bezoras and the Gospels, and you start to put more emphasis on the dogma that's been developed on what Paul had to say, that we forget that there's 4 Gospels there that are founded on what the Torah says. So we try to support our doctrine by making Scripture fit to make our doctrine what it should be, as opposed to trying to create sound doctrine that supports Torah. Again, if we cannot confirm it in the Torah and in the prophets, then we have to take another look at it, whether it be Judaism or Christianity. So this helical loop continues in that we also try to establish our own redemption based on our construction of silver calves. We just do it with words. Okay? Again, why do we believe what we believe? What is the origin of that system of belief? So we can equate this to our own tendency to put stock in our doctrine rather than the instruction of the Torah itself. The house of Israel even went to the extreme, offering human sacrifices to their deities. And we read this as they would offer their children to Molech in all of this stuff. So this also goes contrary to the Torah, obviously. Is there a reason that Elohim told Abraham to offer up Isaac? We say, oh yeah, he wanted to test his faith to see if he would sacrifice the one thing he loved. Well, there's another reason. I'm going to sacrifice Isaac. I'm going to tell you to offer him up on the fire, and then I'm going to stop you so that you'll understand that human sacrifice and sacrificing your own children is not okay. Why was there such a big emphasis put on the sacrifice of animals in Vayikra? So that they would sacrifice animals and not fall into the traditions of the people of Canaan and sacrifice people. Okay? Does Elohim require the blood of animals? No. The Torah tells us, I don't need that. I need you to be obedient. I need you to build a relationship with me. I don't care about the rest of it, but since I know that you're going to kill your kids and throw them in the fire. Here's some animals. Kill them. Okay? He knows us pretty well. So anyway, so we have to consider the phrase, they that sacrifice men kiss calves. We can consider that we too sacrifice ourselves to our own golden calves when we reject Yahuwah and his Torah. And this is exactly what the northern kingdom did. They were offering up the wrong thing to their golden calves, missing out completely on building a relationship with the one entity that actually mattered. Okay? Verse 3, therefore they shall be as the morning cloud, and as the dew that early passes away, as the chaff that is driven with the land out of the threshing floor, and as the smoke out of the window. So, we read this topically, we can say, okay, well, none of this stuff lasts very long. It's just poof and it's gone. So, from this verse, we can consider that the actions of the house of Israel made them subject to becoming lost in time. They would be as these things mentioned in this verse that fade away to nothing. So we have to be careful to observe what we do in our worship, as false worship will also place us in the same condition. There's a lot of stuff that we believe. All of us have different belief systems, and even in this room. Again, why do I believe what I believe? What is the origin of that belief? And is this belief actually driving a wedge between me and my Elohim? So, eventually, the northern kingdom of the house of Israel would be totally dispersed. They would be lost sheep, and that's what Yahushua came to find, is the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But they would be so interdispersed with the Gentiles that they were not even recognizable anymore. And this is where we fall into this problem with Paul. Paul didn't go minister to the Gentiles. He went to go minister to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, who were considered Gentiles by the southern kingdom of Judah. So, yet I am Yahuwah Elohecha from the land of Egypt, and you know no Elohim but me, and besides me there is no deliverer. Okay? So over the millennia, thousands of doctrines have come into being, just as the house of Israel developed its numerous doctrines and political arrangements. It wasn't just about worshiping the way the other people did. It's about, I'm going to worship the way you do so that I can please you, so that I can be politically correct in your arena, and you'll be my friend, and you'll watch this flank so that I don't get attacked by the people that are on the other side of you. Or I'm going to trade with you, even though I shouldn't be trading with you, so that I can profit and make my kingdom greater. So nothing that the northern kingdom would do would prevent them from being conquered by more powerful peoples that would subject them to heavy burdens. There is no modern-day dogma that will keep us from being overrun by daily burdens if it, too, is contrary to the Torah of Yahuwah. There is no deliverance in any other dogma. There is only deliverance in Yahuwah and in His Word. The word used for deliverance in this verse is Hoshea, that comes from the root Yasha, that means to deliver, and it is the root of the name Yahusha, or in Aramaic, Yeshua, who, as the word of Yahuwah, would come to redeem, deliver, and restore the northern kingdom, and make that redemption, deliverance, and restoration available to anyone who would believe and receive it. Did he come to die for all of our sins? Well, we read in Chronicles, and we'll read it in just a minute, that if my people will call upon my name and humble themselves and seek my forgiveness and make teshuvah, then I will forgive them, and I will heal their land. But there is one thing that Elohim cannot forgive, and that is the sins of idolatry. Yahushua had to pay a price in order for the redemption of the house of Israel. So when we look at the world, for Elohim loved the world in such a way that he sent his only uniquely begotten Son, so that whoever would believe would not perish. He's saying the world itself is the Gentiles scattered throughout that world. The lost sheep of the house of Israel scattered throughout the Gentiles. But by proxy, those Gentiles who were not of the house of Israel could be the stranger in the midst who would also gain from that deliverance. So he delivered everything in the known world in that area. But it was for idolatry. Okay? So, restore the northern kingdom and make that redemption, deliverance, restoration who would believe and receive. According to verse 9, it appears that the northern kingdom was not willing or ready to accept the Yasha of Yahuwah. It says, "It is your destruction, O Israel, that you are against me, against your help." There isn't much explaining necessary here. They reject the Yasha of Yahuwah. The help of Yahuwah is to desire and accept. Okay, let's try that again. They reject the Yasha, the help of Yahuwah, because their desire is to accept destruction. Okay? To reject Yahusha is to desire a separation from Yahuwah Elohim and the consequences of verse 3, which is a permanent cessation of existence. 11 says, "I give you a king in my anger, and I take him away in my wrath." Anybody want to wager that that's probably not what this says in Hebrew? Okay. The word for "in my anger" in this verse is be'afi, that literally means "in the flaring of my nostrils." Okay? Anger, in the ancient idea, well, what do you do when you get angry? You flare your nostrils, right? So, okay. This we can consider a distortion or disruption of the spirit. What happens when you flare your nostrils? The wind around it kind of gets blown out of whack. What happens when Yahuwah gets angry? There's a spiritual distortion. Something happens that causes a ripple that separates us. So our free will, the king in our lives, often causes a disruption in our spiritual connection with Yahuwah, who is spirit. Yahuwah gave us free will so that we could choose to draw close to him. Let's consider the phrase, "and take him away in my wrath," which cannot be an indicator of Yahuwah's desire to remove our free will. Yahuwah will not remove our free will. We were created with that. We were created in the image and the likeness of Yahuwah Elohim. Not that we were created to look like Elohim, but we were created with the ability to have a consciousness to understand what is proper and what is not proper. Okay? We can choose to have a relationship with our Elohim, or we can choose not to have a relationship with our Elohim. If he had created us simply with the desire to have a relationship and not given us any free will, then what good is it to our Elohim? I have a lot of friends. I cherish the friends that will tell me the way it is, more than I cherish the friends that are yes men. Because the friends that are yes men are going to tell me what I want to hear, and the result is that I do things that maybe are not a good idea, where the friends that tell me what I don't want to hear are the ones that make me think, well, maybe that's not a good idea. Oh, there we go. That's a good description there, I think. I don't know. All right. So it is not the desire of Yahuwah Elohim to remove our free will. The word for "and take" is ve'ekach, that comes from the root lakach, meaning to bring. The word used for "in my wrath" is be'avarti, that from the root abra means an outpouring and an overflow. Yes, it can mean wrath. But more specifically, it means an outpouring and an overflow. The root of this word is iber, that means to cross over. Would it surprise you if there are no words for him or away in this verse? What we consider from this verse is that we were given free will to either bring us in harmony with the Spirit of Yahuwah or cause a distortion within the Spirit. This would either bring us an outpouring of overflow of abundance within the Spirit of Yahuwah, or it would cause it to dissipate. Would the children of Israel have prospered by not crossing over the Jordan? Because they would have remained in the wilderness. Would they have been okay in the wilderness for another umpteen years? Okay, they had to cross over the Jordan. The word Yardin means to drag down. So if we're crossing over those things that drag us down, going to the place, makom, that Elohim has created for us, then we are crossing over the difficulties and leaving them behind and moving into a relationship with our Elohim. But we have to choose to do that. And there are 2.5 tribes that chose not to do that. So, kind of sort of chose not to do that. So, let's see. We, like the houses of Judah and Israel, have the free will to choose. In the case of the house of Israel, they put their own free will, their kingship, above Yahuwah their Elohim. So in the last 2 verses of chapter 13, we can consider that redemption from destruction and the cessation of being and the loss of real spiritual connection is first based on a desire to make teshuvah, and then based on Yahuwah's willingness to redeem. So redemption from destruction and cessation of being. If we want to be redeemed, if we want to be delivered, and we want to be restored, it is going to be dependent on our desire to make teshuvah. And then it's also going to be dependent on Yahuwah, our Elohim's willingness to accept that teshuvah. Okay? So, verse 14 says, "Shall I ransom them from the power of the netherworld? Shall I redeem them from death? O your plagues, O death, your destruction, O netherworlds, repentance be hid from my eyes." Sounds like Yahuwah is kind of having one of those indecisive moments. I really want to redeem them, but I can't do that because they are not making teshuvah. Okay? And we'll continue to read throughout the rest of the prophets that the northern kingdom never quite got there. They were given the opportunity even to attend the second Passover by Hezekiah, right? Hezekiah that had the second Passover. And they were offered the opportunity to come to the second Passover, to get clean. They couldn't attend the first Passover because nobody was prepared. The second Passover was set. Emissaries were sent to say, dudes, northern kingdom, come on down. They refused to come. There was a trickling, but they refused to come because they didn't want to have anything to do with all that Torah stuff. Is that repeated? In the 4th century, the bishops under Constantine said, it is banned for any, let's say, priest or whatever at this point. The Catholic Church was in the Big Bang effect of becoming born, but they banned anyone who was teaching or responsible for anything within the church from celebrating anything that had to do with the Torah. Hebrew was banned. A lot of things were banned, and what came about was a Western mentality, aggression mentality, Greco-Roman mentality, and we lost the Hebraic thought processes needed to understand what's going on in the Torah. It didn't just affect what Christianity would become. It also trickled over and affected what Judaism would become, because Judaism also has a Greco-Roman mindset. But the Torah is built on a Hebraic mindset, an ancient Hebraic mindset. And if we lose that, then we can't understand exactly what it is that it's telling us. Anyway, there we go. Verse 15. "For though he be fruitful among the reed plants, an east wind shall come, the wind of Yahuwah, coming up from the wilderness, and his spring shall become dry, and his fountain shall be dried up, and he shall spoil the treasures of all precious vessels." So in these verses, we have to seriously consider that Yahuwah Elohim did not have to redeem the house of Israel, just as he did not have to redeem us. Okay? He chose to do so based on the promise made to Solomon at 2 Chronicles 7:14. Solomon has just completed the temple. They've just finished tabernacles, and Solomon prays, if the people will call upon your name and humble themselves and make teshuvah, will you listen to them and forgive them and heal our land? That's his prayer in 2 Chronicles chapter 5. 2 Chronicles chapter 7 verse 14 in the Hebrew Torah. I don't know if it's the same in the regular English-based Bibles. Yahuwah gives a response to that. And he says, if my people who will call upon my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their evil ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and I will heal their land. So chapter 14 gives us a clear picture of what teshuvah would do for the northern kingdom and what it will do for us as well. But the northern kingdom didn't make teshuvah. And they would not make teshuvah until Yahushua died, paid that redemption price, made it possible for them to reconnect because the father's will died. So now the divorced wife could be redeemed by a kinsman of the father. The father couldn't redeem the wife because if he divorces her and she goes off and marries someone else, she can't come back and marry the first husband. That's what the Torah says. But if that husband dies, then she can come back and say, hey kids, mommy's home. Will you redeem me and let me come back into the family? Yahushua was the son, and he was able to pay the price, redeem the divorced wife, and bring her back. And this was what the northern tribe was. But it wouldn't be until Paul went out and explained this to them that they would have an aha moment, and they would come back, and they would seek teshuvah, and they would mikvah in the name of Yahushua, that they were dedicating themselves to Elohim through the teacher Yahushua in order to have that relationship again. So, by proxy also, we understand the first verse in the Torah, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. That also within the Hebrew of that tells us that there was a way made through the Aleph and the Tav becoming flesh that would reconnect the heavens and the earth back together. So not only would it restore the kingdom of Israel and Judah, these are types for the kingdom of Elohim and the kingdom of the Adam to also be restored back into a relationship. Glad I got that off my chest in one. Okay. So, all right. So now we go to chapter 14. It's going to give us a clear picture of what teshuvah would do for the northern kingdom and what it will do for us. So we're going to look at an assortment of verses from chapter 14, or from this final chapter of Hosea. First, it says, "Return, O Israel, to Yahuwah Elohecha, for you have stumbled in your iniquity." So here we have Elohecha instead of Elohechem, which makes it a very intimate and very close thing. The title Elohecha is used in these verses to illustrate that teshuvah must be a personal and intimate choice that each individual must make. Elohecha means your Elohim, but it's talking directly to you. It may be talking to the whole of Israel, but it's talking to each individual of Israel. Whereas Elohechem would be talking to the entire group. Okay? So this brings it into a very close and personal thing. It is our responsibility to have a relationship with Elohim as individuals. Okay? Verse 3, "Take with you words and return to Yahuwah. Say to him, forgive all iniquity and accept that which is good. So will we render for bullocks the offerings of our lips." All right. So we have this funky phrase, the rendering of bullocks with the lips. It's an illustration that the desire for teshuvah must be voluntary and it must be complete. How do we get this idea? Well, we have to understand the book of Leviticus. We have to understand that first offering in the book of Leviticus, that a bullock was the sacrifice offered as the burnt offering. Why is the burnt offering so important? Because the person that's offering is offering something of value and not expecting anything in return. They have to totally and completely desire to give this, because this animal is going to be completely burned up. He's not getting anything back, And he is not greasing the palm of the priest because the priest isn't going to get anything from it either. I have to have a desire to make teshuvah. And it has to be a voluntary thing, and it has to be a complete thing. The bullock was completely and totally burned up.